large landowners, former governors. I mean, it goes broad and deep. I mean, the King family, holy cow.
Like so many others, Gary King's campaigns and his father's received money from Epstein.
I think early on in campaigns, we knew that he was a businessman and solicited campaign contributions from him. When you're campaigning, you pretty much reach out to everybody you know and ask them to give money to your campaign.
It wasn't until 2014 when those contributions became controversial. Gary King unsuccessfully ran for governor, trying to follow in his father's footsteps. King says, unbeknownst to him, companies owned by Epstein donated money. At the time, Epstein was 5 years removed from being convicted of soliciting a teenage prostitute in Florida. King said accepting the donations from companies owned by Epstein was an oversight by his staff and announced he would give the money back.
I had a conversation with Mr. Epstein and he said that he wanted to contribute to my campaign, and I told him that I wouldn't accept a contribution from him. Actually, I think I even said, wouldn't be good for me, wouldn't be good for you.
Documents released by the Department of Justice show Gary King and his running mate, Deb Haaland, took a trip on this plane from Santa Fe to Washington, D.C. to meet with union leaders. The flight happened the same day he returned the money. The plane was booked by an Epstein-owned company. King has maintained that he was unaware the plane was arranged by Epstein.
I found out actually only after the release of all these Epstein documents.
However, these emails seem to show otherwise. Someone sent Epstein an email indicating that Gary King wanted to speak with him about possibly using his plane to get from Santa Fe to DC. And Epstein also received an email alerting him that King was on the flight. But King questions the validity of the emails.
And I don't know how credible it is. I don't know who wrote it.
You think it was fabricated?
I don't know that it's fabricated, like fabricated after the fact. I just think that whoever wrote that email might not have understood what I understood, which was that our campaign was going to charter that airplane and that we paid for it.
Documents also show that King was in communication with Epstein leading up to the flight. In this email to Epstein from his personal assistant months earlier, she wrote, "Please call Gary King. He looks very forward to speaking with you." This one says, quote, "Gary King just called. Apologized for not returning your call sooner." King has maintained he barely knew Epstein.
How many times do you actually remember meeting Epstein in person?
That's simple. I met him once in person.
But King acknowledged shortly after his father died in 2009, he got a phone call from Epstein. He was Attorney General at the time.
He called and said that he had heard about my father's death and that he wanted to express his condolences and he would appreciate it if we could meet in person and have coffee. So we actually ended up having tea because we went to Jinja and had tea.
Epstein was just months removed from serving time for a sex offender conviction in Florida. A few months after that meeting, the Department of Public Safety, which reports to the governor, sent Epstein this letter informing him he would be required to register as a sex offender in New Mexico. Bill Richardson was the governor at the time. But after an email from his attorney, DPS changed their tune, sending this letter telling him he wouldn't have to register after all. Epstein had been convicted of soliciting a prostitute and procuring a minor for prostitution in Florida. He served 13 months on work release.
Do you believe he should have been forced to register as a sex offender in New Mexico?
Say it depends on the act. I recognize that he pled guilty to, one of them was to soliciting a prostitute, so that wouldn't be something that you would have to register for. The other charge that he pled to, I don't know.
King and his family are key to understanding how Epstein ended up here in New Mexico. His family sold him the land. Bruce King was governor when he bought it. But the King family aren't the only powerful New Mexicans who had connections to Epstein.
Court documents show the late Governor Bill Richardson had arranged 9 meetings with Epstein over the years, including some at Zorro Ranch. Richardson was accused by Epstein survivor Virginia Giuffre of being forced to give him a massage. Richardson, who died in 2023, had maintained those accusations were false. Richardson had received $50,000 in campaign contributions from Epstein that he ultimately gave to charity. Former state land commissioner and Albuquerque Mayor Jim Baca received $10,000 in contributions from Epstein. He said Richardson had tried to arrange a meeting with him but declined to do so. He later received the check. He too returned the money after Epstein had been charged in Florida in 2006. He tells Target 7 he gave it to a battered women's shelter. Baca was also the Bureau of Land Management Director for a brief time under President Bill Clinton. Baca was also the land commissioner when Epstein bought the ranch. However, he tells us he was on a leave of absence, serving in his federal position when the transaction was made. He said that as a matter of practice, the commissioner's name is on all the state leases, but he never knew or met Epstein. Former U.S. Attorney and New Mexico congressional candidate John Kelly's name appeared in Epstein's Black Book. At the time that revelation was made public, Kelly was the chairman of Albuquerque's Ethics Board. He told Target 7 he met Epstein only once at the invitation of the King family when Epstein was looking to buy the property, but documents released by the Department of Justice show that he represented Epstein when he bought the ranch.